That's one called the Cuckoo's Nest. And, it's a little unique among fiddle tunes as you have more harmonic structure to play with, more chord movement, especially in the A part.
Question right there?
Yes. I just started playing mandolin about a year ago. John, inspired by your workshop with Sam, and I'm kind of stuck on chords. I play a lot of kids songs for the Head Start program I work at.
Yep.
And I'm kind of wanting to know how to move on from just chords to the pick. What's the best? Do you have any recommendations on where to start?
And when you say you're stuck on chords, could you elaborate?
Meaning, right now I play a lot of songs in G, because a lot of kid songs are easy to play in G. But I'm just chording and singing with kids.
You haven't really done any melodic playing yet,
right.
Is what you're saying. Yeah.
Correct.
So that's what you're asking, to move on from just chordal work into fiddle tunes or playing melodies?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I think for me, I started kind of working on the two things simultaneously, and I think there's a lot of easy bluegrass tunes. You don't have to start trying to learn something like what we just played. There's some, one of the first instrumental tunes I ever learned was a song called "Boil Them Cabbage Down."
Oh yeah.
Sure. So melodies like that, and whatever key you choose to learn it. But I think I maybe learned it in A, just something like. Kind of just walking up the scale.
Gotcha.
And starting to just make music on the instrument you don't have to start in some kind of crazy elaborate way. I think part of it is taking very basic versions of a tune like that, or you could even take something like "You Are My Sunshine," or something like "Amazing Grace," or Old Joe Clark, a really simplified version of Old Joe Clark. That's kind of the gateway, I think, to get into a place where you can eventually play more elaborate tunes, just trying to learn to just have something that you can kind of use as the vessel to get your fingers moving, because it is a muscle memory kind of thing. I don't know of anybody that just starts out flying right off the bat, right? You have to kind of, and you can practice scales and things like that as ways to kind of get used to having some fundamental movement of those kind of things,
Right.
Just slowly. But I've always been of the mindset, I think that what really draws us to music is being able to actually play songs and tunes on the instrument. And so, though I'm an advocate for learning, all we can learn where all the chords are, learning scales, things like that, warm-up exercises can all be great, but that doesn't mean you have to know all that stuff before you start playing tunes, because there's plenty of things you can do that's going to be joyful and make you want to pick up the instrument.
Absolutely.
And so that's what I always try to encourage people to do, is find the thing that, even if it is learning a basic tune, find the thing that's going to make you start feeling excited. Because I remember the excitement of learning my first couple fiddle tunes and being like, wow, I'm making music on the instrument, and that makes you want to get it out of the case and play. It shouldn't be like, oh, I've got to learn all these scales and chords before I can learn a tune. It's not like that. And bluegrass, most people start learning these tunes right away. So.
All right.
And I believe, the two things do go hand in hand. Of course, any of the things that we've been playing here, as far as fiddle tunes, there is certainly a scale component to it. So, as you learn one that you're interested in, we were just playing Cuckoo's Nest in D. A starting point, tandem to learning the tune, is to get yourself familiar with, let's call it the roadmap or the playground on your fretboard, the notes you're going to need. So D.
Kind of all in that first position,
And while you're doing that, your strings will go out of tune. But also, I think, getting comfortable with that, just this plain D scale, you're bringing your right hand, you're getting comfortable with up and down, picking, and Cuckoo's Nest. Right there, I'm playing part of my scale.
All right.
You mentioned you're playing a lot of songs, accompanying things for your kids, but you know, take what you know and build on that. And let's say we'll just imaginary random song that might be going D to G. So you say you're stuck on chords, right?
Yeah.
Well, nothing wrong with the chords.
Right.
But again, if you have an idea of that little fretboard map from your D chord to your G, back to your D, you know, whatever song you're familiar with,
Right.
while you're accompanying yourself. You know, we call them fills. Start there. You know, you already have a foundation, a song that you're familiar with, and the chord progression. You can find those little connections, and all I'm doing again, from a D chord to a G, I'm kind of essentially targeting the next notes in the chord by way of a scale. You know, and right away you can take those fills into a longer territory. They become solos.
Totally, and I assume you're doing some vocal.
Yes.
You're singing.
Yeah.
So I think one advantage as a singer, and even for people who don't sing, is like you could find one of the kids' songs that you're working on. Take
Right.
something you know, like he said, and you know what it needs to sound like, and take that and see if you can just figure out the first couple melodic lines. Try to follow your voice and find out how that's laid out on the fretboard. If it was something like, you know, I said, you are my sunshine, you know, if you were singing, you are my sunshine, my only sunshine, going, okay, ba-da-da-da-da, you know,
Oh, okay.
not that you're going to just automatically do it, but kind of finding once you learn, okay, if this is in the key of G, that's where maybe understanding a G major scale, that's where this can come in handy. You know, and being able to just start out in a simple key like G that's open. Kind of understanding that, and then sort of follow your voice and go, okay, odds are that's a very melodic, you know, you are my sunshine, my only sunshine. It's very within the key. You're not singing anything crazy or dissonant, you know, so odds are it's going to be one of the, you're going to find the notes within that scale, you know. So that's sort of a starting process.
Okay,
you know?
thank you very much.
And then from there,
Thank you both very much.
move on.
Yeah, I was wondering how you think about playing mandolin in a band that has keys and a drummer, and versus just playing one where you're really focused on the rhythm.
Yeah, I was wanting to just see how you think about playing with a drummer and a keyboard as a mandolin player differently than if you were just playing a regular bluegrass instrumentation.
Yeah, that's a great question. And you know, for many years, the majority of Railroad's existence, we didn't have a keyboard player until Andy passed away, and we had Matt join the band. But I think I kind of refocused anything that I knew or didn't know about mandolin and sort of relearned it to create an approach that would work with the band, with the instrumentation, with the vibe of the songs. And one of those things certainly was thinking of the mandolin as the piano player's right hand, and having a keyboard piano background myself, that kind of came naturally to me, but it also felt like what fit the music, you know. So a lot of that comes into an approach to playing chords, where in a straight bluegrass band you need to be, you know, the snare drum. But even in that context, if I were doing that, and I will join the snare drum at times to give pitch to his percussion and to give percussion to my notes. But the wonderful thing about mandolin in particular, again, thinking of that approach, is what would the piano player's right hand be doing as he's chording, supporting the vocal, or supporting a soloist? Because there are so many things. I'm the cuckoo's nest in my head, but voicings. Instead of, in a bluegrass context, you were responsible for the time and the chop, and kind of have to stick to drummer, you can syncopate, play around the beat, he's holding it down, but also in a melodic context. Bit of both worlds, I guess, how I've always thought about it. And again, sort of drifting from piano to this, what will my right hand do? You know?
Yeah, no, I think that's all great advice. Kind of a similar approach. I think part of it is just about trying to keep your ears open too. You know, the way we're playing duo here is much different than how either of us will play when we go join up with our bands this weekend. You know, if I'm playing in a bluegrass band versus like I've got drums in my band, but it's you know, slightly like he's not he's got a lot of like wide dynamics, so he knows how to play kind of quiet on the things, you know, that are more ballady or whatever. And so we've worked a lot on trying to figure out how to make, you know, the times that he sort of leads from the rhythmic standpoint, instead of just being like, okay, drummer is king always. You know, it's kind of like, because mandolin has that similar role, we've worked and talked a lot about how, like, cool, on this song you're kind of letting me lead a little bit more and sort of working around that. And there's times where I sort of let him lead, and that may be as a bluegrasser, you know, it's easy for me to want to play on the front. But if we play something that's really got a nice laid back groove, you know, that's more me taking the way I'm interpreting the time and feeling it with the band and learning to lay that back a little bit. For him, it's the opposite. You know, if we're playing something that's more of a bluegrass thing, him kind of simplifying and learning to push the time forward a little bit. So rhythmically, you know, with drums, I feel that way. And then, yeah, like what you're saying with the keys, mandolin this is one of the things I love about the instrument. Depending on the context, it can really be such a strong rhythmic instrument, or it can be a beautiful coloring kind of instrument. You know, more melodic and strummy, kind of like a guitar or like a fiddle or whatever.
Yeah. I don't think we could, you know, conclude any conversation that includes the words mandolins and drums within it without referencing. And who did that first?
The king himself.
There's only one thing on the planet that makes that sound, and that's Sam Bush and Haas and his mandolin.
Indeed. And we both played Haas. It doesn't sound that way, I'm sure. It doesn't sound that way when I play
it. Speaking of riffs and fills, you want to try that Watson's Blues? Do the Sam chop, you got to tune it.
Yeah.
The wonderful tune that comes from a recording of a bunch of duets, just Bill Monroe and Doc Watson. Bill says he wrote it, and Doc put this wonderful run in between the changes, so he decided to call it the Watson's Blues.